Someone should just remind the Sky News correspondent that exactly the same ways the Jews remind us of the Holocaust is exactly the same way we are going to remember of the atrocities that the Great Britain did to our forefathers. Our history is going to be preached from one generation to the other, because nobody, absolutely nobody, forced them come to Africa to teach us English. And it is in this context that I wonder why a whole journalist would utter such sentiments in the full glare of world cameras.
I wish the King had more pride in Britain. But it seems that every time King Charles visits the West Indies or Africa, he's got to crawl, he's got to grovel, he's got to apologise for Britain's wicked colonial past and pretend it was 100% evil. And it's the whole same story again on his visit this week to Kenya, where activists are hoping that after sorry comes reparations, free money.
The wrongdoings of the past are a cause of the greatest sorrow and the deepest regret. There were abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence committed against Kenyans as they waged, as you said at the United Nations, a painful struggle for independence and sovereignty. And for that, there can be no excuse.
Joining me from London every Wednesday is Patrick Christie, star presenter on GB News, which also, by the way, now has the fastest growing news site in Britain. It's on its way. Patrick, the King's slamming of British history in Kenya, the right thing to do, or is he letting Britain down a bit?
Well, it's absolutely the wrong thing to do. The King is supposed to be our envoy around the world, not going around on an international apology tour. And they're trying to spin it as the King stopped short of full frontal apology. Well, that's just a technicality. That was an apology. And yeah, we've seen it time and time again from the royal family. There was a lady whose real name is Marlene Headley, who went by the name of Ngozi Fulani and then dressed in full African clobber and attended an event at Buckingham Palace. She took a great umbrage as a member of the royal household, Lady Susan Hussey, who'd been the Queen's closest confidant for decades, asking her where she was really from, which might have been slightly clumsy, but also not the most ridiculous question, given the circumstances. They then apologised to her, but a little bit like this, Andrew, an apology is not enough. Next comes the handout. Next comes money. But, you know, for the Kenyans, we have actually given them billions of pounds over the years. They are a member of the Commonwealth. In fact, £132 million investment in Kenya went there just a couple of years ago. And can I just say, you know, whenever we see incidents take place in this country, if we see a terror attack or something like that, we don't ever expect an entire community to apologise for the actions of one rogue individual. So why should our entire country now, and every British person living in it, and our current serving monarch, apologise for things that had nothing to do with him? Where are our reparations from the Norman conquerors or from the Viking and their ancestors, you know?
Look, it's true. And the other thing is, you know, couldn't he say, well, listen, there are bad things we did. There's good things we did. I mean, the intertribal slaughter we helped to ameliorate. We gave you democracy, even if Kenyans don't always live up to it as they should. We gave you the gifts of the English language. We gave you the rule of law. I mean, there's many institutional things. I've been to Kenya. I look around and I think, wow, if the British hadn't been here, this place would not be quite as good as it is. Not that the Kenyans have quite lived up to the legacy they were left.
Yeah, exactly. But also, if it hadn't have been us, it would have been someone else. I mean, the French were at it, the Portuguese were at it, the Spanish were at it, everyone was at it, OK? So if it wasn't the Brits that had gone in there at that particular moment in time, it would have been somebody else. And I don't see these other countries queuing up to apologise either. But it just ties into something else that's really going on in this country as well, which is, you know what kids are going to be taught in school today, don't you? That our king has gone abroad to Kenya and apologise for our past, which gives teachers another excuse to teach youngsters in this country now that Britain's past is terrible and that we were an evil force around the world. I mean, I've always said this, and I always will, that the world has been very lucky to have Britain, actually, and at times it has been a gift to the world. Yes, there were historic wrongs. Yes, there have been things that have gone wrong because things were different. Times were different back then. That's not to excuse them, but we shouldn't be apologising for those things now.
No, and no.
From such sentiments, it's like the whites want to glorify and kind of justify colonialism. They completely forget that they speak English simply because it is the only language that they know, while we speak English because it is the only language that they do understand. So in either way, we can never be equal. The correspondent has been very categorical in stating that just for free money, and from where I sit, I honestly dispute that statement, in the sense that why term it as free money? And we all know, with all the looting, all the killings and plundering, and yet here is terming it as free money. And again, one thing they forget is that before they coming to Africa, Africans had a full life cycle, of which that was moving very progressively, irrespective of they coming with their democracy and their language. And in fact, this Sky News correspondent owes Kenyans an apology, because I strongly believe that with all the atrocities that were done to our forefathers up to date, nothing, absolutely nothing, can be done, said, or paid that will tantamountly equate to the atrocities and all the plundering that they were forced into, or they were subjected into. But honestly, that has just been my opinion. If you do have a contrary opinion to mine, kindly do feel free to drop them in the comment section, and I'll give them a right of reply. And as I come to the penultimate part of this video, in case if you're watching me for the very first time, kindly do consider hitting on the subscribe button. If you've been watching my videos and you've not subscribed, kindly just consider hitting on the subscribe button. And my word advice of the day to you is, my dear brother, the louder the ufa, the poorer the owner. Thank you, and may God bless you.